You see all this potential in this fighter. You see all this potential of what this fight could do to him and where it could elevate him. And then it's almost as if he just didn't really care too much. That's how it looked. Welcome back to Casuals Corner, and today we're going to be flying through the full card which took place on Saturday, which was the Brunson Kevin Holland one. So just before we jump into it, I'm going to run some stats by you. So the whole card,
Stat me up.
We've got 10 fights, 4 decisions, 6 KOs, 3 first round KOs. So 40% went to decisions, 60% were knockouts, and 30% were first round TKOs. And unless all the other cards from here on out have 10 fights or 20 fights or 100 fights on them, I won't be able to give you percentages ever again. So
no, I won't be calculating them ones.
Not at all. So get us underway.
Good card, all in all. I thought maybe a little bit of a top-heavy card, but it did deliver. So obviously we'll just run through the card from the top down and give our thoughts. So Derek Brunson versus Holland in the main event. Hate to break it to you all, but I predicted it exactly right. So I'll have a pat on the back, please. Good from me for once. We then had Max Griffin getting it done. Just starching song, right hand down the pipe. If you remember, he kind of went out on the cage, pretty vicious. And then this one I wanted to chat about a little bit. This was a weird one, right? So Cheyenne Byers, whose husband fought on the prelims, and Ruiz, she kind of got stuck in the scarf hold position for like all 3 rounds. It was a bit of a weird one. It was just one of those spots that she couldn't get out of. It was a bit of one of those positions. It was a bit of a weird one. Then they had that kind of weird afters after the bell went for the final round. What did you make of it?
I couldn't really figure out what happened. I just sort of was watching it. It finished, it broke, and then all I saw was them like pushing each other. And then she gave her the big middle finger across the cage, one of those across the cage. I couldn't really work out what was happening.
I kind of love that though.
What did you say you thought happened?
So I think she was on bottom right to finish the fight. She was stuck in that fucking scarf hold position, and then the bell went and she kind of like pushed her off her, and then she sort of like pushed her back. Then she was like, "Fuck you!" And she was like, "No, fuck you." And I was kind of into it. It was quite feisty. I quite enjoyed it, but it's the end of the fight. It's the wrong time to get that sort of.
After 15 minutes of just being held in the same position, it is extremely frustrating. So I can imagine she had some built up anger towards her at the end of it.
Yeah, it's true, because it's not like, don't get me wrong, she was getting held in the position, but she wasn't taking that much damage. She was just getting held there and so frustrated is probably the right word, quite an annoying one, but good performance. If she's not getting out of the position, she's doing her job. And then Yanez versus Lopez stops him in round 3, 27 seconds in. Another good fight, good stoppage. A lot of finishes on this card.
So I was very impressed with that Yanez, actually. When I watched his performance, it was very well calculated. It was very patient. There was a lot of people likening him to Jorge Masvidal as well, which they sort of touched upon in his press conference afterwards. But it was a very, very nice performance. Like I said, it was just very patient. He controlled the center of the octagon very well. And then he just had a beautiful knockout as well. We've seen a few of these sort of types of knockouts the last couple of weeks. Dan Ige, the one that sort of sticks out the most to me. It was quite similar, just very nice timing on the way in, and it was just flush. It was it was a very good performance, actually.
Right on the button.
Exactly that.
Yeah, speaking of calculated performances, Tai Tuivasa not being super calculated, but being super effective, getting it done in just under 50 seconds, and strong performance. Bit annoyed, actually. Don't know if he did a shoey, but didn't see one.
Did not see a shoey. Negative.
Lack of shoey. Pretty disappointing from old TT, but what can you do? And then the prelims actually delivered quite well, to be fair. On the prelims, we had 1, 2, 3 finishes. I'll take it. So we'll talk about the finishes. We had Grant Dawson versus Leonardo Santos, and there's a beautiful clip of James Krause in Dawson's corner going into that final round, and he's basically saying that you need to finish him. I love that from Krause. I love the sort of transition he's made from fighting into cornerman. He corners a lot of fighters out of Glory MMA gym. He's really made a nice transition into that coaching role. I'm into it. What did you think of that stoppage? That finish even?
I actually didn't realise it was the last 2 seconds until it happened, and then I realised that it was the last 2 seconds to make it even more impressive.
Yeah.
But like you said, I really like it when you get a very honest corner, because I think it's so important. We know in UFC, obviously, we have no scorecards, so you actually have no idea to some extent what's going on. So it's always good to have a very, very brutally honest corner. And he told him, he was like, you have to get a stoppage to win the fight. And I mean, he left it late, very, very late, but it was a very, very impressive stoppage, and a stoppage is exactly what it was. It was brutal, absolutely brutal. So for anyone that did
it was vicious.
I can't remember how he got to the canvas. Was it a knockdown?
I think he was trying to leg lock him. I'm pretty sure he was trying to leg lock him, trying to heel hook him. He was trying to heel hook him, and he stood and just rained down 3. I want to say
it was more. It was more than that. There was
3 shots.
There was 3 when he was actually knocked out. Remember when we were counting? But there were, I think, even 1 or 2 prior to that, which then actually turned him off. But it was horrible. And then he even spat his mouthpiece at the end when he was just absolutely unconscious. You have to think as well, you have a man standing up at their full height, and it's not like they're in mount where they can get the power from here to here. They get their power from their entire height now. So it's just coming with so much more force, just straight down onto the chin, and that was it.
3 clean shots as well, all unanswered.
And you have to think of it from the other side of things. For the other fighter, you have to think he literally was 2 seconds away from winning that fight, and then he had a very, very violent KO. So it just goes to show anything can happen at any round. And it sort of relates back to when we was having that Bilal Muhammad discussion, and people were saying, oh yeah, but Leon Edwards would have won it. You just never know. You just never, ever know.
Yeah, at the highest level of MMA, you actually never, ever know. I think like that stoppage has gone down as round 3, 4 minutes, 59 seconds. So it couldn't have possibly been any later. The only later finish I can think of off the top of my dome is when Rodriguez finished Zombie with that backwards elbow. And as he's hitting the floor, the buzzer goes. It's some movie shit, but you can't really get any later than that. It was beautiful. I love the embrace after as well. Just him in the corner. That must be a mad feeling, right? You just literally finish a guy and the time goes, and he was probably getting beat as well, if we're being honest. So beautiful from him.
I think he lost that fight if he didn't get that KO, to be honest.
Yeah. So yeah, even better. What a moment for him. And then just moving down the card, Trevin Giles getting it done, decision. And then we had another KO, Montel Jackson versus Jesse Strada. Nice shot down the pipe, finished him off. Good fight, nice prospects at bantamweight. He now moves to 10-2. Athletic, powerful, good puncher, just a good fighter, really. Bantamweight stacked right now. And then the first fight of the night, Bruno Silva versus JP Byers. So how about JP Byers getting stopped, first fight of the night, and then his wife has to go fight Co-Main, if I'm not mistaken. That must be a cornered her as well. It must be a crazy feeling.
It was a very, very interesting fight, and it was a good one to start off the night, and seemingly everything sort of happened. It was a bit weird. JB Byers, he had a lot of heart, to be fair to him. He took a few shots. He was taking some damage. He had that one when he got clipped, and then he had he rolled out of the danger, which was quite nice to see. But yeah, it was a pretty hectic fight from the get-go. And then after it, there was even a bit more drama when Bruno Silva did the backflip and nearly knocked out the bodyguard, which was I thought was quite funny as well.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I'm glad I had that on my notes because I completely
forgot about that.
Yeah.
How about the reflexes from the UFC security guy?
It was quite good, wasn't it? It was quite a nice little swerve. Little one of them.
That one, he'd been making notes clearly. But yeah, let's be honest, it was a good card, you know. Sometimes these ones that don't necessarily have as much name value often deliver in terms of the actual performances. And sometimes I find the ones that actually have the name value can sometimes somewhat under deliver in terms of performances. So it's interesting, really. In terms of the main event, let's
I was just going to say 100%. It
talk
was
to me.
what I sort of said to you before in terms of the UFC is it's the elite of the elite. It's the creme de la creme of the crop. So whenever there's a fight, no matter who's on the card, there's always going to be potentially good fights. Whether it's very well-known names, whether it's people at the top of the rankings or at the bottom, there's not really any subpar ability fighters there. So week on week, if you watch it, you're going to see some good turnouts, which we did on this Saturday. So even though there weren't a ton of rankings, a ton of titles apparent, it was still a very good card.
Not many implications for the division. Yeah, and I find that as well, right? When they're sort of lower down in the rankings in the UFC, they're kind of almost got something to prove. They're fighting for their spot a little bit, you know? And then when they get a little bit higher in the rankings, they fight a bit more, not safe, but they calculate risks a bit more because they've worked so hard to get to the spot they are. And there's a little bit more politics, I want to say, at the top when the numbers start getting involved. But interesting. We've got a good one next week, on Saturday, which I'm sure we'll talk about, but we will talk about at some point this week. But staying on the topic of this card, let's talk about the main event and what you would like to see next for Mr. Derek Brunson.
It was an interesting one.
Let's talk about the fight, actually.
Yeah, let's talk about the fight.
Let's talk about the fight.
It was frustrating one, I'm going to say. It was a frustrating one for me. Big fan of Kevin Holland, big fan of his ability, big fan of him as a person, big fan of just his whole persona in the UFC. But it was just frustrating. And I feel like he would have lost quite a lot of fans from this Saturday's performance. Not for the fact that he lost. It's not a case of, just because he was 5-0 and now he's lost, I have no interest in him. It was more of a case of, you can have this personality, you can behave the way you want, you can keep it as fun as you possibly want. But I think the frustrating thing and the thing you never want to see is it almost appear as there's a lack of effort. And I think in the fight on Saturday, it just really felt like he was concentrating so much on the talking, so much on that sort of winding him up. He was on his back like a lot of the fight, and he was still just talking and not really trying to escape the position. And it was just a bit frustrating because you see all this potential in this fighter, you see all this potential of what this fight could do to him and where it could elevate him, and then it's almost as if he just didn't really care too much. That's how it looked. How about yourself? What did you think?
Yeah, I think, it was a frustrating performance from Holland because he definitely had his moments on the feet and he showed why he's so dangerous. There was a clear difference in speed, but I don't know. He's talking about dropping down to 170, which I think is a bad move for him because he's not huge for the division. There was a noticeable size difference between the two when they were in there, but I think for Holland, right, his move is staying at 85 because outside of Brunson, there's not too many wrestlers that are going to give him a problem. It's quite striker heavy at 85. If you go down to 170 and you've showed a bit of a deficit, if you will, in the grappling aspects, you're going to get found out. You're going to get found out fast. Think of the likes of Usman, who was obviously the champ, Colby, Bilal, even Leon can wrestle, you know. There's a lot of heavy wrestlers in there that have that in that back pocket should they need and will use that against him if he goes down there. So I don't know if he necessarily wants to be a champion or he wants to be an entertaining fighter, but if he wants to keep winning, I think for him the move is to stay at 85. What are your thoughts on Mr. Holland?
I believe he did say he came out and was talking about the title and whatnot. And he was pretty much just saying, look, I don't care if I lose, if I win a title, I do this for fun, which I do get and I do appreciate. But it also gets to a point of there's not a lot of point, or what I see it from a neutral perspective, there's not a lot of point in putting all that work in and putting all that time in. And yeah, by all means have fun, but why not have fun by putting maximum effort in and reaping the rewards of that? And to give Brunson his credit, he executed the perfect game plan. If we could draw up a game plan for Derek Brunson, it would be that, and he executed it 100%. The question marks he had coming over his head on the way into this fight was, could he keep his discipline? Would the speaking get to him? Would he sort of get a bit hands heavy and get a little bit excited? But he didn't do any of it. He controlled it quite nicely. Don't get me wrong. He got caught. He got caught once or twice. Yeah, he got caught once or twice. And it's like you said a second ago, like his speed and his power, Kevin Holland's power was there on show. And even Derek Brunson said after the fight as well, he said, I was hurt, but he just didn't capitalize. And that was the frustrating thing. And it was a winnable fight for him. It was a really winnable fight for him. And not to be one of those ifs and buts, but it's hard to say that you couldn't see Kevin Holland winning that if he came out all guns blazing with a strategic game plan.
Yeah. I mean, the grappling was clearly just a problem, but I feel like even at the end, right, when there was 10 seconds left, he was sort of like, oh no, he sort of dismissed it. I would have much rather have seen him in that final 10 bite down and go, look, I'm going to try and knock him out to finish strong. I think, like you said, though, you've got to give credit to Brunson because he did a great job, even at the end of the rounds when Kevin Holland's just talking shit. Not even talking shit necessarily, just talking for the sake of talking, just trying to get that sort of friendly sort of back and forth going with Brunson. Brunson's like, no, we're in a fight. I'm not here to be friends with you. I don't want to play this game that you get so many people into. Like, I want to win. I don't want to play into your game. And I think that's a good blueprint for guys going forward. Don't sort of get involved in this game, and it's hard to because you're fighting a guy that is literally non-stop talking to you, but he did well to keep his head screwed on and sort of just get on with the task at hand. Maturity in there that we maybe haven't seen from him apart from his last fight, so he's definitely maturing.
Well, this is the thing we sort of spoke about before he went into the fight. His record and who he's actually lost to. He's lost to the best in the division and some of the best to ever do it at that weight. So he's very experienced. And we said this could be the sort of turning for him. He wants that title shot now, and I think he's trying to put all the pieces together. He's got the experience and he's got another nice win. So it was a good performance from him. And like you said, it was that blueprint's out there now. And I think Kevin Holland.
Yeah.
Kevin Holland just has to go away and reflect, I think, what he wants to do in this division, because there were somewhat title implications to this fight. There were, not necessarily the next fight, but somewhere not so far down the road.
Yeah.
And who knows, if he were to get the win over Brunson, who knows what could happen. There could even been a title shot after that. You never know how this sport goes. So I think he's got to go away and figure out actually what he wants to do in this division, because it was a little bit frustrating, but I think Brunson looked good and he's going to look good for the future, I think.
What did you make of him, Holland, talking to Khabib between rounds?
I just didn't even know if he was being serious, if he actually meant it, if he was actually just trying to occupy himself. Yeah. And the truth of it is, you can't say about a fighter or any sportsman really, if he's acting within the rules and he's allowed to, then realistically they're allowed to do what they want. So it's not for us to say, he shouldn't be doing that, he shouldn't be doing this in between rounds. I guess the norm wouldn't be that, but it's each to their own. So it's just him. It's just him. I didn't think much of it. I thought it was pretty funny to watch. But again, I think again, going back to Brunson, I think he handled it pretty well. I don't think it let it affect him. Because I mean, your fighter on the other end of you, literally a few feet opposite you, is screaming to the pound for pound number one in the world about giving him wrestling tips as he's fighting you. So it can be distracting.
It is entertaining, I must admit. You can say what you want about Kevin Holland after that performance, but you can't deny the guy is good to watch. And in terms of what's next from him, I'd love to get your thoughts on this, but I think this would be a fantastic fight in my opinion. I think you do Kevin Holland versus Edmund Shabazian, both coming off losses to Brunson. Fantastic fight stylistically, both strikers. You could argue that it's a good matchup for them both. It'll just be a good fight. What do you think about that one?
I think you're right as well. When I looked at the table earlier, there wasn't a lot sort of jumping out to me in and around him. And you have to sort of, again, consider that he is coming off a loss. So that's got to factor into who you're sort of pairing him up with. a lot of that division sort of tied up with fights already anywhere above him. So I think Edmund.
You know what?
Go on.
I'm an idiot though.
What?
Because Edmund's actually fighting Jack Hermanson, so that's off
in
the
the
cards.
book?
But that is a nice one for the future. Yeah, that's official.
I didn't even know that book yet.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
Who we got in and around him? We've got Uriah Hall, Chris Weidman.
So Uriah Hall is a fantastic matchup. Kevin Holland versus Uriah Hall is a fantastic matchup. I will watch that all day and all night. That is a great fight. What do you think about that one?
I think looking around that middleweight division, as I was just saying, I think everything's pretty much tied up. And obviously he's coming off a loss, so you can't then start looking at the higher end of that sort of table. So yeah, I think Uriah Hall is a very nice fight. He is just one place above him, so I mean it's not an impossible fight to get. He's not got anything in the book, Uriah Hall, either. So yeah, I think when I look at the table, I think that's a good matchup.
Yeah, I like that one. I like that one a lot. It just leaves us with Brunson now, really. He called out Costa. He was calling him Tipsy Costa, which made me laugh. And obviously Rob and Kelvin are fighting now, so that kind of does free them two up for the not so distant future. What do you think about that one?
I think the only person you've got free at the top of the middleweight division is Jared Cannonier. If we rule out Paulo Costa.
One's calling out Jared.
Yeah, if we just rule out Paulo Costa just because of the whole flu thing, so let's just cancel him out. Obviously, the top of the division is just pretty much made up at the moment. Obviously, you've got Darren Silva, Torrey, Hermansson's obviously fighting, and then you got Derek Brunson sitting underneath that. So he has to go up. He has to fight above him. So it looks like Jared Cannonier is the only fighter there, unless Paulo Costa anytime soon can get fit and wants to take a fight. But I don't know if I can see him doing that anytime soonish.
I think he'd quite like the idea of a fight against a former champ that was Robert Whittaker, but obviously unforeseen circumstances threw him out of that one. But who knows? There's a lot of good fights to be made at middleweight, and Luke Rockhold said he's coming back to middleweight, so he's an interesting addition to the mix for sure. He could beat all those guys if he comes back on form. He could beat all of those guys. People forget how good he was and is. His grappling's phenomenal grappler. But you just don't know how it's all going to play out. Say what we do know for sure.
We're going to find out.
Facts. Big facts.
As always, Paige from Casuals Corner. If you enjoyed, please drop a like and a subscribe and get involved in the comments. We're always very happy to see you interacting. Drop us a follow on Instagram.
You know the vibes.
At Casuals Corner. And that's it from us. Peace.